10-4 drivers, welcome to the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. This is where the real stories roll, straight from the blacktop. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going and the lessons that left a mark. It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Paper breaker 19, can I get a radio check? Pretty quiet out here on Channel 19. Well, there's a plain white rapper taking pictures at the state line. Hit the jake brake quick, we ain't paying no fines. The driver swing into the interstate, body shop south at exit 5. Building trucking ain't the same as it was. We're the last of our kind.
I'm your host, Tony, and welcome to the show. It's April 13th, and this is episode number 9. It's the final round of the Masters today down in Augusta, Georgia. For those of you who aren't golf fans, that's one of the major golf tournaments of the year and one of the most prestigious. And I don't watch much golf on TV. I mean, it's good if you're wanting to take a nap and not be disturbed by too much noise. And I play a little golf. Mile marker Mike and I will go launch some balls into the woods when we get together, especially in the summertime if we're up in Minnesota together. I flipped it on the TV just to see where everything was at, and it made me think of one parallel between golf and trucking. You know, for normal people, other than the professionals that you see on TV, golf is mostly about things that go wrong. About 80% or more, depending on the day, of your attempted shots really don't turn out like you hoped, which is kind of like trucking. Seemingly improbable series of events occur that put you into this endless string of frustrating situations. A golf course is many acres of finely manicured areas for you to do what they expect you to do, which is hit the ball straight or in a reasonable direction of what you're planning. And then they have nice manicured greens to help you roll the little ball into the hole. But there are a very small percentage, like most golf courses, maybe you have less than 10% of the golf course is a hazard area. And there's some trees and there's some sand and there's some water. But the whole place is really designed to help you get from point A to point B and put the little ball in the hole. But what you find yourself in is these improbable situations where these very small percentage of hazards seem to be right where you find yourself, behind a tree, in the water, in the sand. And you look around in disbelief and go, how is it possible that I ended up here, given all the area that's not this challenging? And that's kind of like trucking. You spend most of your time battling these various hazards and improbable situations. It happens over and over again through the course of the round. There's 18 holes. You spend most of your time dealing with these situations. And about the time that you're really asking yourself, why in the heck am I even out here? Why did I pay money to be frustrated like this over and over and over again? And right about that time, something good happens. You hit the ball straight, it goes close to the hole, something that actually resembles something athletic happens, and you've got a little pep in your step for a short amount of time. You remember all the reasons why you love this game and think of all the optimistic ways that the rest of the round's going to turn out. But then it slips back to the usual grind of trouble. So it made me think that what golf and trucking have most in common is it's really about your mental toughness. How do you handle frustration and the choices you make in those moments? Do you rush? Do you let emotions take control? Do you make bad situations worse? Do you take higher risks to try to get out of the problem that you find yourself in? Or do you take a breath, step back, think things through, get some advice from your caddy or a trusted friend, and figure out how to make the best out of a bad situation? You know, today we have two of the best players in the world, Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau. They're currently in first and second place coming into the final round. And what I like about watching these tournaments, especially when it comes down to this, great players in great situations, is to see how they react. What do they do when the stakes are the highest? And especially when problems occur, which they will, even for professional golfers, nobody plays perfectly. And how do they react? What do they do? And how do they handle it? Because that's really the difference in a lot of ways between success and failure in life is what do you do with the tough situations? So let's see how that all turns out today. I managed to tie together golf and trucking to start the episode, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great show. Let's get started. True TMS is a cloud-based transportation management system. Being in the cloud makes integrations faster and you're able to access the platform from anywhere. They specialize in liquid transportation with their product True Liquid. It has intuitive planning, on-demand reporting, and easy order creation, rating, and invoices, which turns tedious admin work into streamlined automated workflows. And True TMS ensures your team feels supported throughout the entire process. The folks at True TMS have decades of trucking and liquid experience, and they care about this industry. They don't just sell you a product, they're invested in your success. If you're a liquid hauler, visit their website, truetms.com, and of course, tell them Channel 19 sent you. This week on the podcast, in the pre-trip, we'll talk a little bit about the tariff whirlwind that continues to impact the trucking news. We've got a new Mac on the market that was revealed this week, and we'll take a look at some OEM numbers and see how the manufacturers have been doing here as they release their March numbers. In the money line, I'm going to pick up where I left off in my trucking story and take the journey a little bit further, which discusses kind of one of my first big decisions in my trucking career. Also, we've got the long-awaited reveal party for encouragement cards. I'm going to release some of the encouragement card designs this week. I'll start putting them out on social media on Tuesday, and we're wrapping up the order form here on the website, and I'll get that shared out so you can participate in the fun of encouragement cards. So I'll explain what that's all about here in the money line as well. No guests this week. My schedule is a bit of a disaster, and so I didn't want to inflict that on any potential guests, so we kind of just set that aside for the week. In the meantime, check out the website. If there's any interviews out there that you haven't had a chance to listen to, go ahead, click on the interviews tab of the website, and you can go click through. You don't have to listen to whole episodes if you don't want. You can just kick back and listen to some interviews with our previous guests. Don't forget to stick around for the post trip. We've got a couple announcements there as well. So let's take a quick break, jump into the pre-trip. If you're not driving, it's a great time to like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. And let's keep the show rolling. Trans Carolina Permits is based out of North Carolina. They've been in business since 1977, and they've got a team with a ton of experience in all of our favorite part of trucking, which of course is the government. They provide a portfolio of services for the trucking industry, various applications and permits, FMCSA Authority 2290s, IRP tags, DMV tags, trailer plates, along with state filings for your business. Overdimensional permits, not to mention they have a compliance program. They'll help you with clearinghouse setup and queries, IFTA, and mileage reporting. So your state-by-state mileage, your fuel purchase tracking, and get that wrapped up into a nice little bundle for quarterly filings. They're a one-stop shop for your trucking needs. You can find them on Facebook and LinkedIn, or check out their website, transcarolinapermits.com, or give them a call at 1-800-899-4870. Grab that safety vest. Let's get out and do our pre-trip. There's been a number of acquisitions recently in a couple areas of trucking. Keenan Advantage Group continues to acquire smaller carriers, and they made another move here at the end of March. They acquire MC Tank Transport. That's their second acquisition in 2025, their second in March. They made 4 acquisitions last year, mostly in the second half of last year. So they continue to expand their bulk hauling position across the United States and Canada. In the auto hauling space, Proficient gobbles up another carrier. They acquired Brothers Auto Transport, 110 units out of PA near Allentown. And Proficient, they're no strangers to the news landscape over the last 6 months or so. There was an acquisition made of a bunch of carriers, which all got married up into a public stock offering for Proficient. What we see here is a lot of cleaning up of some of the work that resulted from the Jack Cooper failure. It was estimated by some sources that Jack Cooper had around 10 to 15% of the total finished vehicle market share prior to their closure. And like I mentioned, Proficient acquired 5 other regional haulers and went public last year. Their stock went up on news of this, but overall it's been down. Pretty slow in other categories of trucking for acquisitions. I think the volatility of just about everything right now is impacting a lot of areas. Fuel prices this last week went up 6 cents or so in the Midwest, West, and Gulf Coast. The other areas of the country, Rockies, East Coast, they were up a couple, 3 cents on average. Now, the good news is diesel prices are lower than a year ago, but still hurts in this kind of environment to watch fuel prices go up. Crude oil prices, on the other hand, were significantly down last week, largely impacted by uncertainty from a global economic standpoint with all the tariffs. Typical results here with crude oil going down. We've kind of got some interesting dynamics between some of these commodity prices, global economic uncertainty, and also we see that playing into the dollar, which had plummeted over the last couple weeks compared to many currencies. We've got a recipe here for challenging times in the short run. Also in the news this week, Mack unveiled their Pioneer platform, the new truck models that they released over in, I think they were in Brooklyn when they did the reveal. Interesting looking truck, right? And it has some similarities to some other trucks we've seen recently, namely the Volvo, the new Volvo that was just released. A lot of similarities there, as you would expect, both being under the Volvo Trucks North America umbrella. They've got a bunch of features that they talk about as far as driver comfort. I saw some pictures with their digital mirror system with the bar up on top. The screens inside the cab that you look at the screen that's mounted up there kind of in the corner of the cab between the windshield and the side and the door frame. On the outside of the truck, it basically has like little wings sticking out from up on top above the door, sticking out a couple feet. The thing that immediately ran through my mind was, okay, what is that going to cost when somebody runs a trailer and clips one of them back into a spot at a truck stop? You got this bar of untold electronic devices embedded in it and mounted up and wired up to the side of your cab, and you hit that thing. I can only imagine thousands of dollars being involved in fixing that. The thing that they talked about most of all, or they seemed to make an emphasis on in the reveal and the press releases, was this being an air quotes platform, being able to be extensible and flexible to support lots of different sensor systems, electronic systems, software, over the air programming, upgrades, things like that. Lots of flexibility for future gadgets. What's interesting, I've never owned personally a Mack or a Volvo truck. Like I mentioned earlier in my youth, my Uncle Larry was all Macks all the time, Bulldogs everywhere. So familiar with him from that perspective. And he did test out some of the newer models back in the 90s that were coming out just for like team drivers and some of the creature comforts that came from those newer Mack models as they released them back then and started to make something a little bit more driver friendly than the typical work truck R models, things like that, and the Superliners. But I have had some experience lately with a Volvo car. About a year ago, I leased one of their SUVs, an XC90, largely because it's a comfortable car and it's got one heck of a safety track record. The quality of the car, the physical components, very high. Software and electronics didn't seem to be their strong suit. Had a bunch of issues, updates, electronic stuff, sensors, all kinds of problems. It's been to the dealer a number of times to get worked on. Now, to their credit, they did make a bunch of comments. I was, of course, reading between the lines on some of their comments. It seems like they're aware of the issues that they've been experiencing in the software and the technology realm. So the big question is, have they fixed anything? The other thing that kind of struck me as interesting was the fact that basically when you look at the thing, you go, well, it's kind of like the latest Volvo releases. And you ask yourself, what's the differentiator between it and your Volvo line of trucks? I mean, when Mack was a standalone company and they made some trucks like this, it was a normal thing to have some diversity. There was a separation there between the typical Mack work truck models and having something that was a little more built around over the road drivers and comfort. When you're a part of Volvo, what's the point of having a Mack that basically seems like a Volvo and competes against a Volvo? So I'll post a link. If you haven't seen the new truck, go check it out. Which leads me to the final topic here in the pre-trip inspection, talking about truck manufacturing. On the Class 8 truck manufacturing front, see some numbers here for March. In March, sales were up from February by 18%, but down overall year over year. And overall, 2025 is down 10% from this point last year. Freightliner, Western Star, both Daimler Trucks North America brands were up. Also, Mack was up. Volvo International and PACCAR, both PACCAR lines were down, Peterbilt and Kenworth. One question that came up, I was having dinner with some colleagues this week, and we were talking about the Trump administration and some of the emissions discussions going on, CARB, of course, some of the topics we've discussed on previous episodes of the podcast. And so we were talking about what do we think this does for the OEMs? You know, if you're in the market to purchase a truck or trucks or trading in and going through your normal cycles, does any of all this noise impact your timing to make some of these purchases right now? How does it affect buying behavior if the Trump administration does make significant changes on the emissions front, but also knowing that basically we've got 3.5 years left of this administration, and who knows who's going to be the next administration, and maybe just flips right back to the trajectory that we're on right now. Interesting points made by my colleagues. I also wondered in the short run with the performance issues that we've seen in newer model engines, their longevity, their cost of ownership. Are there people who would just sit on the sidelines and not make a purchase until we see how this turns out? So I'm going to throw that out in the poll question this week. Get your thoughts on how is that affecting your current thoughts around making a purchase. The other thing we talked about was how much money the OEMs have sunk into developing this technology. And even if the regulations change significantly, would the OEMs really change? I mean, I think we've seen that in a number of areas, not just trucking, where the regulations change, but the industry's kind of just stayed the course, even without the motivation of the government mandate. We've completed the pre-trip inspection. Get that seat adjusted. Let's push the buttons in and get this rig rolling. We've got work to do.
It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Welcome back. Let's drop down to line 3 and knock out the money line this week. Quick recap where I left off the story last time. I had been hauling local sugar beets, piling station to processing plant with my first truck that I owned, a $10,000 1988 International 9370. Power only freight, just pull in their trailer, hauling beets, load them up with a payloader, dump them off of side dump trailer over at the processing plant, back and forth and round we went. That season had ended, and so they cut us all loose, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do next. I was 20 at the time. This would have been in February. My birthday's in late April, so I have some time to figure out what I'm going to do before I turn 21 there and have some more options on the table. So after I slept and caught up on my sleep, I was thinking to myself, do I really want to be an over-the-road driver? I mean, I've got a lot of folks in my family who do it. And my biggest concern was not did I want to do it, because I knew I wanted to do it, but was it like, could I do it? And what did I not know about it, right? I hadn't been riding around in the truck since I was a kid, maybe 10, 11 years old, since I'd gone over the road with anybody riding along with either our drivers or the Legend. And mostly all those runs were between the mountain ranges in North America. I had never been east of Ohio, never been west of the Dakotas at that point, never seen the Rocky Mountains. I had made one trip on the Amtrak east of the Appalachian Mountains. So you hear a lot of stories growing up, but I didn't know what it was really like to drive in mountains, or frankly, even see any mountains. And growing up in Minnesota, where you can see the football lights on towns 10 miles away, where we grew up, there's not a lot of terrain to wrap your imagination around. So I said, maybe I should just go out and have a look around and see what it's really like. So at that point, I had a Chevy pickup, and I decided to make a road trip it was an exploratory mission of sorts. My big concern was I didn't want to get out there and not be able to do it. And I also didn't want to drive myself off a mountain or hurt anybody else in the process. So I packed up my truck with a duffel bag and I took off west, like Lewis and Clark story. And so I headed out west to Denver, stopped in Denver. I grew up as a Broncos fan. So, of course, if I'm going out west, I might as well see Mile High Stadium while I was there. Swung in through Denver and then continued on west, crossing the Rockies on 70 and then cutting south down from Grand Junction, drove through Ouray, drove down through Durango and headed towards the Grand Canyon. And this was February, so I got a taste of some things that I'd never seen before as far as what it was like up in the mountains. Some inclement weather. Of course, I didn't have any chains, didn't know anything about all that coming from Minnesota. So if the weather got bad, I just parked, waited it out, and then continued on my journey when the roads were passable. So I went down through Durango, like I said, decided to go swing past the Grand Canyon. So I saw that. And then I headed west towards Las Vegas. So a couple stories happened along that part of the journey. One of them happened in Kingman. So I was coming down the Kingman Hill on I-40 going west. Come down the hill, boom, blowout, right rear tire. That was my first ever blowout of a tire. Not the ideal place to be doing it. Of course, I don't know if I was going about 80 miles an hour down the hill, but blew out the tire and basically limped it down into Kingman and found myself a tire shop and waited to get my tire replaced. Now, a couple weird scenarios happened in Kingman, which I still shake my head at to this day. So I dropped my pickup off at the tire place, and across the road, there's a McDonald's across the main road there in Kingman. You got to go across like 4 lanes of traffic, plus there's a big middle turn lane for both sides. So, 5, 6 lanes of traffic wide is the street. So I'm jogging across the street in between cars, and I look right and I look left and I look back right, and I'm absolutely stunned. There's a giant tumbleweed just headed right for me. And like you watch a John Wayne movie and or a Clint Eastwood movie and the tumbleweeds maybe they're like knee high, right? Well, this thing was gigantic. This thing was as tall as me and I'm 6 foot tall. And so I'm like stunned first of all, and then I got to jump out of the way and I watch it go past. I'm like, "Wait, tumbleweeds are 6 feet tall?" And so that was kind of a shocker to me. Didn't expect to experience that. And then I make it across the street, dodge the tumbleweed, and I'm headed towards the McDonald's to grab some lunch while I wait for this tire to get fixed. And a couple of girls approach me in the parking lot. And, they were interesting looking, nothing wild, but nothing exactly what you call normal in 1990, whatever. Looked like maybe they'd gotten off of a rock band tour or something like that. So, anyway, and I'm young, dumb, small town kid, not very worldly. So they come up and they start talking to me, flirting with me. And then next thing you know, they whip out this duffel bag and they've got all kinds of colognes and perfume and they're trying to sell them to me. And now I figure, okay, now I understand. I'm not just some irresistible hunk of a man jogging across the street, attracting all the young ladies from around the businesses in the area. There's a reason they sought me out, which was they were trying to sell me something. So they got colognes, they got perfumes, and they start spraying me with colognes, them with perfumes, trying to figure out something that I just can't say no to. And so, anyway, the one girl, she sprays a little bit on my neck, and then she goes in real close to smell it to see how it smells, like she hasn't smelled it 100 times before. Well, anyway, she bites my ear, and I immediately pull back in a reaction. And so I've got blood dripping off my ear, like she bit me and I pulled back at the wrong time. And so I got blood dripping on my shirt and I'm like, I got to get out of here. I'm not buying any cologne. So anyway, I went to McDonald's, got my lunch, stopped the bleeding, went back, got my pickup. So those were my two first encounters over in Kingman, Arizona. About got run over by a tumbleweed and about lost part of my ear, Mike Tyson style, by random perfume salespeople. So I'm ready to roll out of Kingman again. My next stop, I'm headed up to Vegas. And it's hard to realize that the world worked this way not that long ago. And I imagine for young people, it doesn't even make a lot of sense. So I was using as a guide for this trip. I was a member of AAA. I figured AAA would be a good idea for a trip like this. And then when I find out they have guides for each of the states and they'll send them to you for free, I'm like, this is awesome. So before I left on the trip, I had ordered some books for Nevada, Colorado, California, just so I could see, because back then, if you're not in an area and you want to book a hotel, this is pre-internet. You have no idea what hotels are anywhere. I mean, it's Vegas. You know there are hotels all across Vegas and all across the country. You just don't know where any of them are exactly, how much they cost, how to get a hold of them, right? There's no way to look up the number. Like, there's no Google to go, hey, show me hotels in Las Vegas and prices and availability and all that stuff. You were really just wandering around. So, in lieu of just wandering around and figuring it out when you get there, I ordered these books and they would give you a list of hotels and sites to see and restaurant recommendations, things like that. So I'm headed up to Vegas. I had called in advance and I tried to book a hotel in Las Vegas. Now it turns out this was like President's Day weekend. Who knew President's Day weekend was such a time to go to Vegas? But evidently it is. So I had called a couple of the hotels on the list, and then they said they didn't have any rooms, which blew my mind. But they said, here's the number of one across the street that probably has rooms. So I called that guy up, booked a room for the night in Vegas in advance, well in advance, once I knew kind of the timing of how my trip was going to shake out. So I head into Vegas. Now it's like, I don't know, 6 o'clock at night, President's Day weekend. I don't remember what day of the week it was. I find this hotel. Once again, no Google Maps, no Apple Maps. You just wander around looking at street numbers and house numbers and figure out the pattern and work your way in the right direction, you hope, or stop and ask for directions. So anyway, I find this hotel and it's not much of a thing to look at from the outside, but it's a place to stay. I haven't been exactly hitting the high-end circuit of hotels on this trip anyway. It'll get us through one evening on my trip here, and then I can check out a couple things in Vegas and get on my way. I didn't really plan, I mean, I was only 20, so I didn't really plan to stick around Vegas too long other than see some lights and pass through. So I go into this hotel, and it's kind of a Alfred Hitchcock vibe to the hotel and also to the guy working the front desk. And he looks at me and I look at him. We're both feeling a little bit awkward. And I'm like, hey, I made a reservation for the night. And he looks me up, and sure enough, there he had me. And he goes, are you sure you want to stay here the night? And I'm like, that seems like an interesting question to ask a potential customer who's already booked a room at your hotel. So he goes, this is an adults only hotel. And I'm like, yeah, that seems like a fair enough plan to me. I mean, I don't dislike kids, but I don't have any need to have extra kids around. So adult only sounds like a good idea. And I'm like, okay, I understand. And he's like, maybe you'd like to have a look at the room first. And I'm like, okay, that's a first. I haven't stayed in a lot of hotels. Maybe this is just the way things go, but sure, let's go take a look at the room together, buddy. We walk up to the room. He opens the door. He steps in. I step in. I look at the bed, and the bed looks like someone had dropped a wrecking ball on it like 1,000 times. Like this thing is caved in like a soup bowl, not a saucer, a soup bowl. And I'm like, what in the world? And then he goes over to the TV and he turns on the TV and he says, the only TV is adult content. He starts flipping through the channels. And now I understand the implications of him saying this is an adults only hotel. He's like, what do you think? Are you sure you want to stay? And I'm like, no, I don't think I do want to stay. And I didn't have any other plans, and I knew there was already problems getting hotel rooms because it's President's Day weekend, but I figured, you know what? Maybe there's a better option. So we go back down, and now I start to see some of the warning signs. Like, I didn't notice it when I walked in, but there was an hourly rate sign. near the front desk. And I didn't know what to make of that, or I hadn't noticed it in the beginning, but now I understand the business model. So I went on my way, wished him well, thanks for the time, but I'll go find somewhere else. I tried finding some hotels nearby that looked less hourly driven and more family driven, but they were all, of course, booked up. And so I decided I'm going to head out of town. And I figured somewhere between here, my next stop was going to be Death Valley. I wanted to head out that way and check out what all the hoopla is about. And so I headed out that direction, and things were getting a little dire. I could tell the weather was going to get choppy with some thunderstorms, and because you could see them off in the distance rolling in. And I was running out of daylight to be finding a hotel. So luckily, I found a place out somewhere between Vegas and Death Valley. I don't know where it was. Just a lonely hotel on the side of the road that I could shack up for the night and head out to Death Valley in the morning. So I stay there, and I don't know if it's just my perception at the time, but what we had that night was the most wicked thunderstorm I've ever been a part of. And now I've been in a hurricane. I've been in Oklahoma for some interesting weather here recently that's been up there on my charts of worst weather experiences. But in my mind, that one still rings true as like the worst overall series of thunderstorms to experience. So I didn't get much sleep last night, but what the thunderstorm produced was quite an experience the next day. So I wake up and remember, like it's February. February, I don't know, President's Day is around the 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that, right? If I remember right. So start driving out to Death Valley, and there's a sign with the temperature there. And this is like 9 in the morning in February, and the thing says like 104. And like make sure your vehicle's prepared for the test you're about to go through. I stop in, pay my $5, whatever to go, and the guy's like, "You're in for a real treat today." And I'm like, "Oh yeah? What's news here in Death Valley?" And he said, "Well, we haven't had rain in like 500 days. So when it rains, everything blooms all at once." And so he's like, "You couldn't have tried to time a better day to see a unique experience in Death Valley. So enjoy it because it's a rarity." I go driving through Death Valley, and he's right. Like it looks like, I don't know, the Netherlands, right? Tulip fields. Like there are flowers everywhere. It is a sea of flowers that you couldn't even imagine. And there's not a lot of green to it because they don't really waste time growing a lot of leaves because you're not sticking around long. Your seed cracks open from the water and shoots up a flower to get the job done of pollinating. And there's bees flying around everywhere and birds all over the place and all these flowers, knowing that it's only going to last for a few days and then they're going to get burned off and the cycle starts over again. It was an experience I'll never forget. It's 30 years later now, roughly. And what a blessing to be able to see that. So, really, a once in a lifetime type of opportunity, but it was amazing. So I drove through, I made it through Death Valley, headed west from there, kind of worked my way around the Sierra Nevada mountains on the southern side there, ran across elk. I'd never seen elk before. And then you get up in that country and they have signs that say, "Watch out for elk." And I came around one corner and there's like 100 elk standing on the road. So I'm like, wow, that was a pretty accurate sign. I'd never seen a sign be so appropriate like that. They're just standing, laying in the road, just relaxing. And so you kind of honk your way through, and they don't really care. They're not really interested in what you have planned for the day. So you were kind of just at their whims if they were going to move out of your way or not. And I worked my way over to the Sequoia National Park, saw the giant redwoods. And it's funny, I have such vivid details of that part of the trip up until that point. Seeing the sequoias, I remember very vividly. And then it's like my memories are erased because there was at some point in that journey between the Rocky Mountains, the Grand Canyon, the Vegas, the Death Valley flowers, the elk in the road, that at that point I had become hooked. I knew this is what I wanted to do. I knew I could do it. And at that point, after Sequoia, I couldn't even tell you how I got home. I know I went around the north side of the mountains. And not to say it's not as beautiful country up that way. I went up, I cut across Idaho, I think, and then ran across the south side of Montana to get back home. But really, it was about how fast can I get home and how soon can I get started doing this for real? Because I was addicted to the fun, to the adventure, to the just not knowing what's around the next corner, what you're going to see. And so I had to get home and get ready to go trucking. That's what I did. I raced home, I got ready to go trucking. And that's where I'll leave the story off this week of what happened next when I went trucking for real. Now, I will give you this tidbit. I still had a couple months to go before I was supposed to leave the state, and I didn't wait the 2 months. I got out there right away. And we didn't take the most efficient route because there was a lot of scales to dodge, but there was no holding me back at that point. I was going trucking. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll get back into topic 2 of the money line this week. At the Mid America Truck Show, I had the fortune to meet up with Mike Barber, founder of Truckers Wealth. Both of us have a passion for understanding the uniqueness of truckers and sharing our knowledge wherever we can. Mike is a seasoned financial professional. He has over 20 years of dedicated experience serving the trucking industry. Truckers Wealth has created a specialized financial hub where truckers can receive expert advice and tailored solutions to build wealth, minimize taxes, and secure lifetime income for themselves and their families. Truckers Wealth provides personal strategies to help you achieve financial freedom on your terms. Check out his website, truckers-wealth.com, and look forward to seeing him on the program here soon.
We're talking trucking life, uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories, and the miles in between. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going, and the lessons that left a mark.
Welcome back. The moment we've all been waiting for. Let's talk about the Channel 19 Experience encouragement cards. There was a poll recently released. Find It Parts, not sure who they are, surveyed over 1,000 drivers, car drivers, truck drivers, asking them questions about their driving confidence, their skills, their strengths, their weaknesses. And part of it was analyzing the data to see the differences between the types of answers that regular motorists give and what the professional truck driving community gives. I'll put a link out to the poll results on Facebook here for y'all to see the questions they asked and what the details of the answers were. But there were some key takeaways from their analysis of the data that I found really interesting. So some key takeaways. 91% of truck drivers are confident in their driving skills. Truckers are also 3 times more likely to acknowledge their own driving errors. The survey data indicated that professional truck drivers are significantly more likely to embrace feedback and view it as an opportunity for improvement. Truck drivers are nearly twice as likely to be motivated by feedback to improve their driving, which is really encouraging news for me to hear because I've been working so hard on my encouragement cards. And it's funny that this poll should come out right on the cusp of me finalizing the encouragement cards project. So here we go. A lot of people have gotten into the trucking business from a lot of different pathways. I grew up in trucking, so I learned some of the unwritten rules of trucking and trucking etiquette by riding along or from hearing stories from truck drivers, the legend, my Uncle Larry's drivers, our drivers complaining about who's breaking the unwritten rules of trucking etiquette. And contrary to popular belief, the problem of nobody following the unwritten rules of trucking isn't a new problem. This was going on long ago. It's always been an issue to some degree. But with more and more people learning to become truck drivers from truck driving schools, where they may not be taught the unwritten rules of trucking etiquette, or the lack of people using CBs, or hanging around chatting with each other in truck stops, listening to each other complain about it at the diner bar, we've got a problem where less and less people know the unwritten rules of trucking etiquette. And I can see the frustration in social media, the various posts, complaining, listing out all the ways that people aren't following the unwritten rules of trucking. And it made me think, how can we spread this knowledge in an encouraging way to more and more people? And thus, the Channel 19 Experience encouragement cards were born. They're business cards, printed, they're easy to carry a few with you, and they have a variety of pointers on them that you can share with each other. Slide it into the door handle, hand it to one another, however you choose to distribute them, but they have some encouraging words to others. When you see something, say something, and point out the right way of doing things to our fellow drivers. Also, on the flip side of the card, opposite the encouraging message, we've got our QR code for the Channel 19 experience, encouraging people to come over here and either listen to the podcast for more trucking tips or driving tips, or visit our webpage where we're going to write down the unwritten rules of trucking so that we can share those with other people and help improve the industry one encouraging card at a time. Now, there's a couple categories of cards to choose from. We've got regular cards and we've got sassy cards. There might be a third category coming. I've already gotten some suggestions that maybe require a third category of maybe friends only. The type of thing you might say to your buddy, but you might not share with a stranger. They might not get it. So, two categories for now, perhaps a third coming. On the website, and I'll link out to it in the Facebook pages, we're going to have an order form. You can order 20 of them for free. I'll mail them to you. I'm eating the printing costs. I'm eating the shipping costs. We'll do this as a chance, as a little bit of a social experiment to see if we can overall lift up the community by being encouraging to one another. And that's what we're really known most for, right, truck drivers, is being positive and encouraging. All right, so a couple examples of what these cards, so you have an idea of your mind of what we're getting at here. So, like one of the cards says, with a couple little logos, friendly icons, fuel on the fuel island, park in the parking lot. Another one might say, it's 70 degrees outside. Shut off your truck. Another one says, your parking could use some improvement, and various themes like that. I've got a whole list of them. We'll continue to add more, but I think based on the volume of screenshots, videos, complaints on social media, I think we're hitting the big items out of the gate here to have an opportunity to share an encouraging word. Maybe people just don't know. And based on the survey results, it sounds like they're really open to feedback. So I'm excited to see what happens here. So there's some keys to the success of the overall program that we're all dependent on each other to make this happen. All right. So of course you have to order them, right? Fill out the order form on our website. You pick out which cards fit you, which things you tend to notice most often. We'll send out 20 cards. If you pick 5 different types, we'll send you 4 each of those 5. If you only want one type, we'll send all 20 of that type. I'm going to order a few boxes of all the different card types and we'll get them distributed. So once you receive your cards in the mail, you're going to need to observe opportunities to apply them and help others. I've got a Facebook group for the podcast. We'll get in there and get that fired up. So go join that group. That'll give you a great opportunity to share your encouragement efforts. If you take a picture, take a video, show the reasons why. Maybe you can help give some ideas to others. Also, it's a record of why you handed it out. And this is a very important part of the encouragement cards program, which is being able to learn not just from your own instances of you making a mistake and someone offering an encouraging word. The entire group has an opportunity to learn how to both distribute and what behaviors constitute receiving an encouragement card. And also, if you don't know about a certain unwritten rule of trucking, maybe you can learn by watching someone else get encouraged and you don't have to learn for yourself. So learning on all sides here, share those pictures, share those videos. You could share them on our Facebook group. You can share them in other people's Facebook groups. Everyone will be learning and encouraging and growing together. Now, also, give us your ideas for additional encouragement cards. There's many other things out there that we could help make a difference in. We just need the ideas so we can get the cards printed up. So if you notice things out there that just aren't right Or if you have an idea of how you might express that to someone on an encouragement card, share that with us too. Now, keep in mind, some things don't really make a lot of sense to be on an encouragement card. For example, if you're passing someone on the freeway and you get clear of them and you're looking in your right mirror to see if you're clear, and they use their high beams to let you know that you're clear, while in theory that behavior could use an encouragement card, it would be very difficult to hand it to them because you're likely going to pass them and keep on going, and hopefully you don't see them again. Not really sure if we want to make cards for that. So that's just something to think about here as you send over your ideas. Not everything is best suited to have an encouragement card printed up. Also, like I mentioned, we're going to get a page set up that has the unwritten rules of trucking etiquette so we can compile those and put them out there for the people who do find us, and they can see what other unwritten rules of trucking etiquette they might not be aware of. What I've noticed is people who don't know one of the rules are quite likely to not know a bunch of the rules. So I think this will help them between the encouragement cards and the website and the group and all of your positive spirit. I think we can make a dent in this thing. Share your ideas, share your encouraging acts as you distribute these cards, and we'll make the biggest impact that we can. Now, there's a limited supply of these for right now. I'm just ordering up a few thousand of the various cards, and when they're gone, they're gone. We'll see what to do next as we start to run out, if there's enthusiasm for this or what the results are. I have all kinds of ideas. Maybe we make some collector's editions. Maybe we want to have special colors for, we know it's a certain person who handed them out. It was also suggested that maybe we should print some on magnets so that they're easier to distribute than a business card. Right now, they're just paper, but share your ideas and we'll figure it out as we go. Now, there's a chance that maybe you're only listening to this episode or listening to the podcast because you've been a recipient of an encouragement card. Now, don't get down on yourself, right? Somebody out there cared enough about you to let you know that you're capable of being better. They believe in you. And the first step to becoming better is acknowledging that there's room for improvements. And now you're here on the podcast listening to this episode, or you've checked out our website. So, welcome to the show, first of all. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to come and share your story, we're going to do some live streams. I imagine that might have a tendency to draw in some people who are here for the first time based on their receiving an encouragement card. But we'd love to hear from you. When you have this many people involved, there's a chance that we have some misapplication of the rules and regulations of the encouragement card program. We may have some disputes that arise, so we may have to form some kind of kangaroo court of appeals, which may be the most fun thing to do on a live stream. We might need various volunteers to become judges for the kangaroo court, but like this is starting to flow into the realm of almost a dream come true. I get to adjudicate truck driver disputes on the air. I can be a Judge Wapner of sorts for the trucking industry. This really adds up to a whole lot of fun to me. And I do have some experience, not to be light on my resume here. I have dispatched team drivers at various points in my career, so I am familiar with solving intra-truck disputes or inter-truck disputes about various rules, regulations, things like that. So I've got some dispute resolution experience that we can bring to bear here. Now, also, something I figured I should mention is sometimes humans like to collect things, right? Whether that's Beanie Babies, whether that's football cards. So I wanted to be clear, like I'm not sure the encouragement cards are something that you really want to collect the entire set. This isn't Monopoly at McDonald's. You don't need to collect all of them in a series to get a free small fry or a cheeseburger or something. Your goal is to not collect these cards and become someone who becomes familiar with the unwritten rules of trucking etiquette, that you could order your own cards and start to become part of the solution rather than part of the area that needs encouragement. So it takes a village. Share with others, share them on your social media, your TikTok, your Instagram. Let's have some fun with this. The more people we reach, the more people who can be encouraged, and the faster we can make a difference in the whole trucking community. All right, that's it for the money line this week. Let's drop it down to line four for a quick break. And no interview this week, so we're going to jump down to the post trip and finish out the show. It's estimated that 10% of truck drivers in the United States are veterans, and that 1 in 4 veterans are truck drivers. We have a number of guests and listeners of the show who are veterans as well, and we have veterans all around us, not just behind the wheel. I was fortunate to get to spend some time at Matt's talking with Mike Carmichael, founder and president from Check a Vet. Check a Vet's mission is to improve veteran mental health and prevent suicide among veterans. They're a 501c3 organization. All donations are tax deductible. Check out their website, checkavet.org, for more information. If you're a veteran and need someone to talk to, dial 988 and then press 1. And for everyone else, please take a moment to check on a veteran in your life. Once again, that's checkavet.org.
More than anything, this show's about bringing back the sense of community we used to find on the CB, especially good old Channel 19. No rants, no corporate spin, just long-form storytelling from someone who's been behind the wheel, built the fleet, hit rock bottom, and climbed right back up.
Welcome back to the post trip. A couple of events that I wanted to mention coming up in the trucking world. One of them is the Truckin' in Tulsa truck show going on May 16th and 17th. They've got drag races. It's the National Hot Rod Diesel Association, similar to what we had here, Diesel in the Desert, a few weeks back that I talked about. They've got the burnout contest, the dyno contest, truck show, vendors, kids 12 and under are free. They've got camping spots. So check that out May 16th and 17th in Tulsa at the Tulsa Raceway Park. Also, we've got large cars and guitars number 4 at Bristol, Tennessee at the Bristol Motor Speedway. Tony Justice is there raising money for the Susan G. Komen Foundation fighting against breast cancer and the Bristol Children's Charity. Last year, they had 200 plus trucks raising over $50,000 for these charities. So we've got a bunch of music, truck shows, and Tony Justice, of course, is there putting on a show. So check that out. May 23rd, 24th, Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee. Bennett sponsors that event as well, along with Food City are the two main sponsors there. So check it out. One website I ran across, you might want to check it out, it's called thetruckshowlist.com, which has a great calendar, a map view if you're looking for shows nearby. It has dates and links to the various events, and so it's easy to find what's going on in your area and come out, support, check out cool trucks, see what people have got going on. Usually there's great food and really positive vibes and attitude. One of the reasons to be happy that you're part of this amazing industry. So check those out. Quick reminder to pay a visit to our friends of the show on social media, the Feathersons. Of course, they've got new things going on here as they change up their life into a new direction. So check out their social media. I-95 Truckers, of course, with great photos out on the East Coast. Big Cal's Trucking Kitchen. Watch Cal wandering around, coffee with Cal in the mornings, and check out what Cal's up to. MJ Love Johnson out wandering the countryside. Cindy in Iraq, or White Rose Pilot Car, and Chris Barber as Chris is out hauling some freight. I saw lately him with, I think it was a giant versatile dually tractor he was out hauling this week. So beautiful looking rig and a beautiful looking load that he was hauling. Be sure to keep reaching out to us if you'd like to be on the program. Message us on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Email us at inbox@channel19experience.com. There's also a contact form on the website. Welcome to all the new folks and keep sharing with your friends. I've mentioned earlier that we're going to try to do a live stream. Right now, the plan is to do a live stream this Thursday night, which is April 17th, Thursday, April 17th, 8 p.m. Central. We'll do a test like Monday or Tuesday for the live stream, just see where all the buttons are. So you might see something pop up in your feeds there. But the real show is on Thursday. If you happen to join on Monday or Tuesday, who knows what to expect as we're just testing stuff out. I need to get my ducks in a row here on this live stream. especially with the release of the encouragement cards this week. I have a feeling that we may get a little more commentary than usual as a result. So, on the next episode, I plan to talk more about trucking legacy and what that's going to be all about on the website and as a part of the Channel 19 experience. I plan to talk about consulting, both my experience being on the receiving end of a podcast consultant working with me, but also me being a consultant and my history in trucking consulting and how that all fits into the Channel 19 experience. And if we're lucky, we're going to have some thoughts and feedback on the encouragement cards. So as always, like, follow, subscribe, heart, leave a review, tell us what you think. Thanks for listening this week. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We'll see you all next week. We've got work to do.
This has been the Channel 19 Experience. If it's about trucking, we're talking about it. All uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories. But we talk about the world of trucking today, too. Everything from legislation to lane changes in the industry. We got it covered. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back at the ranch soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on social media at Channel 19 Experience and the website at www.channel19experience.com. That's channel and the numbers 19. See you down the road.